awareness raising and key aspects. The second phase will commence between this January, and by June we hope to be through with that. We'll visit the various stakeholders, assess their processes, have access to the ICT deployment, find out where there are gaps, what they could streamline in order for it to be compliant with the PCS platform. There will be technical and functional specifications, technical and governance implementation. You know, the PCS, maybe I should define the PCS first of all. The PCS is an open, neutral platform. It's an open, neutral platform to provide secure, intelligent exchange of information between private and public stakeholders. And the purpose is to ensure that there is an integration of the functional, or rather the administrative flows with the logistic flows. So the port committee system focuses on the cargo. The cargo, we want to ensure that the cargo is processed as quickly as possible and delivered to the owner in record time. And while doing that, the trader or whoever is involved does not get stressed. He gets to submit his document once to the platform. It's a one-stop shop. And then that document is being viewed by every stakeholder. Customs, NAFDAC, SON, or whoever is in charge, the process, and they return the response to the inquiry, the certificate, or whatever is being required at that time to the same platform. Then the trader just picks it up and goes from there. It removes all the hassles. It's actually a trade facilitation tool. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so at the end of phase 4, we will be able to have a functional PCS deployed. Like we said before, for a PCS to be very, very successful, two things are very, very key. The stakeholder involvement. Every key stakeholder must be actively involved. There's no single stakeholder that can make it a success. Every one of us in the port ecosystem must be directly and actively involved. And then there must be trust. Whoever the lead stakeholder that is going to drive the process must be trusted to do that. So I said all major stakeholders, including the NCA, that's Nigerian Customs Service, terminal operators, shipping companies, freight forwarders, truckers, and other key government agencies should actively participate in the discussion. The authority is already engaging with IMO team for the commencement of phase 2, which I said earlier. So at the end of phase 2, we would have assessed all the processes, the ICT deployments in the various stakeholder organizations, and be able to see where there are gaps and offer advice on what to do to mitigate those gaps. The port committee system does not take away your existing system. It only streamlines it. It kind of optimizes it, manages and then automates it. It's not going to take away all that you have or everything that you have. If it's in line with the standard set, it just continue from there. It's not going to replace anything that you have, so long as you're only going to streamline it, optimize it, and then prep it for automation. Next slide, please. Okay, these are our deployments we have in Nigerian Post Authority. We have the Oracle Enterprise Business Suite. This takes care of our financial and our HR planning and all that. We integrate with the banks and then the Oracle EBS. Maybe I should just tell you a short story. Before we went to this, we had if you come to work in the office, you struggle to get a parking lot to park your car because our customers are everywhere. Because we are coming physically to the office to obtain one form or the other, one template or one thing or the other. Everything was physical. So by the time we now introduced the ESEN, Electronic Ship Entry Notice, and we did integrate with InterSwitch and Remitter, all of that stopped. The parking lot became empty because the clients were now doing that from the comfort of their homes or their offices. So a little effort at digitalization goes a long way in impacting your revenue, your processes, even your own comfort. We had our billing revenue invoice management is a bill processing module, and we interact with banks, like I already said, Oracle EBS, Council for Regulation of Freight Forwarders. We have shared APIs, the shipping companies. We also have our customer portal, the ESEN I mentioned, for manifest upload. We have to process ESEN. This interfaces with Lloyd's Register to get the details of the vessel, with the banks and Nigerian Customs Service and all that. Next slide. Then we have, okay, there was a slide before the conclusion. Okay, we have our command, control, communication, and intelligence system. This is a maritime domain awareness deployment. Before we deployed the command, control, communication, and intelligence system, we had a lot of illegality happening in our ports. We had illegal entry of vessels. We had illegal movement at berths. All sorts of things were happening. In the dead of the night, vessels will move into our port and they go out early in the morning and we don't get any revenues. And when we were sleeping, they were there moving from one bed to the other. In the port environment, those movements are revenue, this money that are built for those movements. So by the time we introduced the command, control, communication, intelligence system, we were able to see. It granted us visibility within the port approach, within our beds, within our territorial waters. So if you make any movement, we see you and we bill you. It also offers us a sense of security. I must say that was equally what contributed to Nigeria being able to attract that biggest vessel, the engineer vessel, because they knew that we had what it takes to watch over the vessel for its protection, crew, and everything. And wow, we're talking about the expected benefits of digitalization. Improve port operations. When you digitalize your processes. Somebody said that before. You reduce the human discretion. You remove the human discretion. You remove human contact. Reduce to the barest minimum. That reduces errors, reduces fraud. It introduces transparency. It beefs up the speed of operation or speed of processing. Everything is, done in a jiffy. So there are numerous advantages of digitalization. We have improved port operations and management systems, increased efficiency and speed of operation, significant reduction in human intervention in port process and logistics. We provide adequate, accurate, and timely information on 24-hour basis, minimize manual interaction and use of paper documents, improve the response time and information sharing between stakeholders. And of course, it will improve our competitive positioning within and outside the country because, like I said earlier on, both business and international trade. So we're not just competing with ourselves, not even with just our neighboring countries, with other port authorities. When they see that we are ready for business, they will come. We are here talking about port community system. The world has gone above that. Other port authorities have gone way beyond that. They've gone to smart ports. They've started just in time arrival of vessels. But for you to get to that level, we must do our port community system. We must automate our port call processes. It's not something that Nigerian Port Authority can do single-handedly. We require the cooperation of all our stakeholders. The terminal operators must be willing to automate their processes. The customs, everybody must be on board. So it's also a wake-up call, an appeal for the soul of Nigeria. We must get this right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ma. That's the representative for Mohammed Bello Koko, the Acting Managing Director, Nigerian Port Authority. I also want to call to the panel session the other members I did not call earlier. I apologize for the oversight. Please put your hands together for the Assistant Director, Consumer Affairs Department at Shippers Council, Abayomi Adewi, as he joins the panel session. Thank you, sir. And finally, I want to make welcome the National Advisor, Investment and Technology at ITPO Germany, UNIDO, Adekunle Olushile, to join the panel. Thank you, sir. Right about now, the discussion is going to be on ICT infrastructure, and our moderator is none other but the Trade and Business Analyst at One Port 365, Chinedu Inworom. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols duly observed. It's nice being here again. So I'm here representing actually my boss, Yoshola Yusidame, not who's unavoidably absent. Now we have a very serious discussion, and I want to run through this briefly. And I believe we're going to be very frank with ourselves today. It's a roundtable. At the end of the day, we'll be able to see some positive feedback that would help us, and channel our strength towards the right direction. Um, Let me welcome the panelists once again. You're welcome. So I know we're going to express all we have at heart, to make this work. We're looking at infrastructure, inclusive of ICT infrastructure, you know, and a lot has been said already. And I'm going to start from there. We've had a lot about communications, we've had a lot about information dissemination, we've had so much. And now we're looking at the ICT itself in light of the after, which is what is priority and paramount for us at this time. So let's jump down even to the very first question that we'll be looking at. And I'm going to start, of course, from my immediate left. So let's take it that way. They say ladies first, right? So we're looking at what is your assessment of the effectiveness and efficiency of the current infrastructure in place, and the efforts being made to improve the infrastructure through digitalizing and streamlining, the whole process. So what do we have in place, right? The whole port process, the whole process around our trade. Looking at the port, what do we have in place? How do you assess the efficiency of what we have in place currently? And what do you think can be done better?
Thank you very much for that question. I would like to say that looking at it from organizational point of view, a lot of stakeholders have done a lot, but again, it's not sufficient because they're all standing in silos. For us as a country, as a port authority to benefit from that, there must be collaboration, there must be integration, we must work together. There must be this. We must put away our vested interest, in just me, my organization. We must go beyond and interact and collaborate and truly and genuinely want the success of the port industry, because there's so much to gain, there's so much revenue, there's so much to grow our GDP from just the sea, trade by sea. So if we do the right things, if we collaborate as we should, if we are willing to re-engineer our business processes, Nigeria should be well, on the way out of borrowing and all that. We should be lending to nations, as a matter of fact.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you that same question. So that, but not in particularly looking at what exactly do we have in place currently, from your assessment? What do we have in place?
Uh, Thank you. Now, as you said, infrastructure is not just the technology. Several years ago in Ghana, the US Millennium Compact there gave the government of Ghana 500 and something, or $520 million for agriculture. They used pretty much all the money on just two things. There was not a single seed that was bought, not a single greenhouse. They used it to build roads from the hinterland that would get the crops to the port, and they built cold storage at the airport. That alone showed that they had a focus on how to get their agricultural goods out. The farmers will take care of the crops. But when they get the crops, what are they going to do with them? There's crop wastage, there's all of those things. Right away, they were able to deal with that. And I think what we need to be able to do is to look at all the aspects of infrastructure. Digital infrastructure and computers, you can buy it. Once it's invented, we just go somewhere, we buy it, and we put it and we implement it. We have programmers here that are just as good as programmers anywhere in the world. We have, all of that stuff. But if we don't have constant electricity and we don't have roads that these things can travel on, then we're going to get ourselves frustrated. So I would say let's focus on the things that are unique to us, the things that are the baseline issues. The rest of the things can be done. That's my belief.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. To answer the same question, right? Okay. Thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me. I'm going to be speaking in terms of the engagement that the National Action Committee has done with both the private and public sector, because I noticed that some of the questions that kept coming up was Nigerians do not know about the African Continental Free Trade Area. The National Action Committee was actually set up as the technical group for the public sector to help collaborate both the efforts of the public sector and the private sector. I personally am from the private sector. I'm a maritime lawyer. Now, what some of the things that we noticed from the stakeholder engagements that we've had for the past 1.5 years is that not only are we working in silos, we are intentionally working in silos. And I mean, we've had stakeholder engagements with people, the groups in road sector, in rail, in maritime, in aviation. I think of all the sectors, with the greatest respect to my own sector, which is maritime, the most coordinated sector appears to be aviation. And the Honorable Minister of Aviation had mentioned that the contribution of aviation to the Nigerian GDP will increase from 1% to 5% in the next 5 years. So they already even have a goal, they have a target on how they are to develop the space. I took a flight on Ibom Air a few days ago, and I noticed that the aeroplane was a plane that was most likely bought from Egypt Air, and the hostesses were made up of both Nigerian and Egyptians. So for me, in my mind, I'm already thinking there's already been a merger and acquisition done here, or some form of collaborative effort for businesses between two countries to actually come together, two African countries to come together to increase their stake in the space. Now, in terms of digitalization, when we look at payment platforms like Paystack, Flutterwave, and you realize that they are in more African countries than our conventional banks, you then begin to realize that Nigeria can be a major player if we get our data management processes right. It's one thing to sit down and talk. I mean, the roundtables are great. However, it's another thing entirely to put that into action. So, for instance, 90% of our cargo movement is done via road. So you can understand why our roads are consistently and constantly being broken down. And then we don't have a way to even measure the weight of the trucks that move on the roads. In most countries, other countries, including Ghana, there is a separation of the trunk roads that are used for freight movement and the roads that are used for ordinary car movements. One of the things that AFTA envisages is a situation whereby with a single either license or driver's license, you can drive from one end of Africa to the other. You can drive from Cape Town all the way to Cairo. Now, is it impossible? No, it's not. It's very possible. However, each African country along the trail have to develop their systems. And we're talking about digitalization. Um, in Nigeria, yes, we have digitized a number of our sectors, but transportation is one of the least digitized sectors. And I can say that because this is a sector that I'm actively involved in. When you talk about road, when you talk about rail, in fact, one of the things in the front burner now is for a legislation to allow for rail privatization. Because if you privatize rail, people will then be able to invest in rail, and then the issues of expanding the use of rail freight, particularly for agricultural products, become even more feasible. I remember, and this is the last thing I'll say so that I don't take too much time. I remember the Minister of Aviation saying that people have gone as far as exporting 5,000 goats from Kano to Saudi Arabia. So that begins to help it helps us understand how big this can get. Because the idea is, can I get shoes made in Aba sent to Nairobi? Those are the kind of conversations that helps us to gear our minds towards ensuring that after works.
Okay, that's wonderful. So let's pass on to Mr. Bayomi. I'm going to come back and take us on some of the high points of what we're stating already. Okay, please.
From the point of view of Shippers Council as a port economic regulator, it is an irreducible minimum that our ports must be efficient, the processes must be top notch. I acknowledge the efforts made by the customs service over the years with the assistance of Web Fontaine in instituting automation into the current processes from Asikuda to Asikuda Plus Plus 96962.
I think we're struggling to hear. Can you repeat?
I'm sorry, I say I acknowledge the efforts made by the customs service over the years to automate their current process through acting online with the technical partnership of Web Fontaine. We have had Asikuda Plus Plus 96962. The present that I think they are currently moving on to e-customs. However, um, there are still some manual processes in their operations that are more or less drawing the cargo clearance back, so that this physical examination of cargoes and cargo to time in Nigeria is currently 22 days. So, which of course makes us terribly uncompetitive compared to our sister ports in Cotonou, Togo, and Ghana. So, it's still a lot needs to be done in that area. I mean, Shivas Council considers three major areas. Number one, ensure effective port operations. Two, interport competition. That is competition between Nigerian ports and maybe ports in Cotonou, and thirdly, intra-port competition. The terminals in Nigeria, compete among themselves, for patronage. And this competition can only be possible if their processes are fully automated, so that we will give customers a choice, just like you have a choice between Airtel and MTN and other. So I think without full automation, we cannot really harness the full potentials that we should on the after.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, Mr. Adekunle, let's hear.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank the organizers of the program, Welcome to Africa, for giving this opportunity to intervene in this way. In terms of assessment of the digitization of port operations and all of that, I would like to look at it this way. I've seen a lot more of presentations, plans, strategies, like the port presentations I will see. What I would like to see is to be able to assess better in terms of actual performance, what has taken place, how much more ships now coming, how much more containers are you able to handle, those kind of data will help us be able to properly, assess the situation. But right now, we have had commissioning of rail lines, but it's been difficult to find out how many containers have actually been shipped from probably Kano to Abuja or from Ibadan to Lagos. So it'd be nice to have those kind of data to be able to properly assess what is being done. I know that where we are at now is not where we started from or where we are a couple of years ago, but there's still a lot more that needs to be done, a whole lot. And I would just like to point to a World Bank report 2019, Nigerian Digital Economic Diagnostics, identify 5 critical areas of infrastructure, digital infrastructure, digital platform, digital financial services, digital entrepreneurship, and digital skills and literacy. Those 5 critical areas are important to properly assessing this current situation. Mr. Babala talked about data, a lot of data that is available, but it is important to be able to proper digital analytics that will help us put in perspective what these data are and the relevant different components that it will be relevant to. Then it's become accessible and useful. There's no point having a lot of data, that is not accessible, and even if it's accessible, it might not be useful because it has not been properly analyzed and presented in the form that will be attractive. And we need a lot of that in this age. Decision making is about data. And they are critical. I would probably like to talk more about digital skills. It is so important because we can't. Every other thing is dependent on how well we are able to attract our young people. There are concerns about job losses, But in other crimes where digitization have been implemented, there have been net positive jobs. More jobs have been created than those that have been lost. So it's about skills development and all of that.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to react to some of these comments we already have. And one was, I think a question was raised about in the first session that if we go digital, several persons will lose their jobs, right? And taking a key from what he said, I think some time ago, Amazon, that should be last year, Amazon they added the new stuff to the IT display, and then over 10,000 jobs were made available because of that singular thing. So, in essence, actually, digitality or digitizing your flow does not eliminate the manpower, because there are skills that people just have to leverage on, to become more relevant. It doesn't take away. In fact, it ends up opening more doors and more job portfolios, when you go digital. So, secondly, it's in the area of data awareness. I want to ask this question: what's the total number of container throughput in Nigeria last year? Okay. Someone just pointed me to ask. To ask Madam beside me. No, I'm asking us generally. Do we have that information? Okay, so it's funny, right? What's the volume of container that was exported last year? I should still ask her. Okay. Okay, I think no, she's not going. I'm not going to ask her. No, I'm not doing this. Right? There's a portal, there's a platform. We can always get better. That's why we're talking about this. It's a pity that when you search online for these things, you're going to see sources from outside Nigeria. According to blah blah blah, where are they? They are somewhere in Chicago. They are somewhere in, and then we that are here, you go to our own portal. Because I was doing some research as part of my job, right? I do a lot of those things a lot. I have all those figures. Don't worry about it. So we do a lot of all of those things, and then to see that the latest we had in Nigeria ended in 2019. In fact, Q1. 2020 was even struggling to be there. So 2019 Q1 was what was available, and then you try to take steps to get in these things. It's more like no, they close shop there, and then we're looking at data management. How do we go? Because in going digital, you're making inferences, you're making decisions based on feedback you're getting from data analytics and all around surrounding it. So I'm looking at this to address this. How much or are there criteria? What are we looking at to make this data available? Because this is one key thing that has been opened up today, right? In going digital, data it's key, and people would not have to work in limited silos, and then this deliberate effort of doing that thing. Like Tony was talking about, yes, there are rules. We understand that there are agencies that controls everything, but why can't I assess this? If there are things I should do, tell me, let me do them. Let me know what to do to get into this information. Why is data still a challenge to us right now? Because I went to this same thing that took me days to get here. I just logged on to the Ghana portal once. I got it in seconds. I got my information live from their portal. So why is it difficult for us? So I want to start with you, sir.
I think it's difficult because we have not paid sufficient attention to the data analytics. As the gentleman said, as my colleague on the panel said, we have a lot of raw data, and converting that raw data into meaningful data that we can use to make decisions. That's an entire industry. There are entire industries, entire companies who are built on doing just that. And I think Nigerians step up, collect it, make it available. We do not need foreign agencies telling us, this is Nigeria's output. I'll even digress just for a second, even down to valuing the reliability of our companies for ratings. We don't. We know it better than they do. So all of it is data. And I think we need to make more of a big deal about data and doing that. That's the first thing. NCS can tell you to the minute their revenues this year, the number of transactions, the number of SGDs assessed. They can tell you to this minute exactly what it is. They've got that. Why? Because it's been organized in ways that can be done. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do. We have it. We're not translating it. I think that's the issue.
I will, can you react to that just quickly? Yes, I want to come back to Madam last. You have, can you start?
Okay, in terms of why don't we have this data? Okay, so we have the data. Um, like the gentleman on my right just said, it's about data analytics from the public sector, not just the private sector. If it's about the private sector, they can always key into whatever the public sector makes available. But if there isn't enough attention being given to the public sector information, being of a better word, easily accessible. Because you go to some agencies and you try and find out whether or not they have the information. They have the information, but somebody somewhere, because their office requires that they do that they have a performance evaluation for that office, or they need to keep up a relationship with somebody that got them into that place, do not make the information available. So you now have public public office positions being used to put forward private interests. And so, until and unless there are consequences for such, and I know that is the elephant in the room, the issue of corruption. Corruption is not when you take bribes alone, it's when you hinder a process from working successfully. And that's one of the biggest issues that we have seen time and time again, particularly in the transportation sector. It is, I mean, international 90% of international trade, physical international trade, happens via the sea. Unfortunately, Nigeria, that has 10 ports, we have 10 ports, we only operate about 3 of them, which is Tinkan, Apapa, and One. We are unable to really harness into that business. It's one thing to talk about digitalization. It's another thing entirely to talk about the infrastructure. You have to even have an infrastructure to work with before you can digitize, because it is when you have the infrastructure that you can then generate the data that can then be digitized.
Thank you. And let me come back to engineer Miss Antonia, right? So, and I would come from the last part of our statement when we have the infrastructure. So, port wise, right? I believe yes, you have this expertise. What do we have in the port? That would make this digitalization work.
We maintain our key aprons. We ensure the integrity of the ship pies and the beds. Then we have what we call common user facility, which, okay, maybe before I say that, I need to go back to 2005, 2006, when the government realized that the government is not a good businessman and they had to concession the port operations to private parties, third parties. We had our port concession in that year, to rev up revenue and all that. So part of that agreement is for these concessionaires to increase or develop the port facilities so that they can add value to the existing ones. So we have a development plan with the various terminal operators. We don't handle cargo anymore. You must have known that. The Port Authority operates as a landlord. We play the landlord role model, yes. We collect our royalties. They do the job. So directly providing port infrastructure like cranes and all mobile cranes and is no longer our function. But we ask them to do such. We take care of common user facilities. They take care of the superstructure. We take care of the substructure. So having said that, the port is also looking at other sources of infrastructure like we have the rails coming to the ports. We are trying to link the rails, the national lines to the port locations. We are also looking at the barges, internal waterways. We are having lots of discussions with barge operators. Up until this time, some of them have been operating without any kind of coordination. We are trying to coordinate everything, and we've also developed a batch call-up system, like the truck call-up system that we have for the trucks on the road. We want to have a call-up system for the batch, so there could be control, there could be security, there could be other. So we're looking at those things. The batch call-up system, we're looking at the PPP, and then for the rail, our Minister of Transport is on top of it. We're trying to bring the rails connectivity to the port. We had that in those days. All the ports were really, really connected. The key aprons were connected, the warehouses were connected, and all that. But we lost it. somewhere along the line we lost it completely. Yeah, so that's what it is.
Thank you so much. We used to have those things. They say, I get that before. Not your property, Abby. Sorry for that. But then that's what it is. So I'm going to come to the next gentleman. I'm going to take these particular questions. You're looking at the MDAs, right? And then after process. So how are MDAs preparing themselves on the federal level for after opportunities? What measures are they enacting to actualize that single window to improve Nigeria's changes, under this agreement? So you're looking at a single window, and then after there changes that should be made. So from the MDA's perspective.
Well, uh, the single window, we as people believe that it should be more integrated, right? All agencies that have anything to do in trade procedure should be on that platform, all right? Because in case in instances where we have multiple windows, they make trade procedure on very cumbersome, and then your ports remain uncompetitive. As regards after, I mean, we have, like Madam will testify here, First Council has been partnering with NACA, with National Action Committee, to make sure that the opportunities inherent in this trade agreement is brought to the attention of concerned stakeholders. As a matter of fact, recently, late last year, Nigeria Office for Trade Negotiations um, wanted to ask us to validate, invited us to validate Nigeria's commitments under trading and services in the transport sector. And then we realized that, I mean, at the validation meeting, the key stakeholders that had to be there are not present. So we rescheduled it, and then we invited all the stakeholders to validate Nigeria's commitments under the trade sector before the Nigeria for Trade Negotiation submit the document. The single window, the major problem is who will be the lead agency now. Everybody's coming to be the lead agency, but just like with the problem, like with all the speakers have highlighted, in Nigeria, we work too much in silos. We don't see ourselves as one government. For instance, MPA, the vision of MPA is to make Nigeria the hub port in West and Central Africa. All right. The goal of Shippers Council is to make Nigeria the destination of choice in international trade and logistics in West and Central Africa. So our relationship should be